On This Week in Enterprise Tech, what do servers and salads have in common? VLANs, 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 and Microsoft shows its hand with Server 2012. Twiet on the set.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the following show is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twiet. This Week in Enterprise Tech, recorded September 10, 2012, Episode 9. I love it when a VLAN comes together. This episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix. It just takes a webcam and a click to turn your online meeting into high-definition video conferencing. Meet with colleagues anywhere in the world, even from an iPad. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. Visit gotomeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use promo code ENTERPRISE. And by MailRoute. MailRoute is email filtering in the cloud for companies of any size. If you're tired of little or no support from your email filtering service, then MailRoute is the answer. For 10% off the life of your account, visit mailroute.net, click on the sign up button, and use promo code ENTERPRISE. And by audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/enterprise. Welcome to Twiet, This Week in Enterprise Tech. It's the show dedicated to the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and the geek who just wants to know how the world is put together. I'm your host, Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, your guide to all things in the enterprise. But I'm not alone. I'm joined by a great panel, starting with the ever-present Mr. Brian Chee. Brian Chee of ThinLinks. How is Honolulu?
Life is good, and there's my new toy.
Right. Yes, this is something you've been talking to us for quite a few episodes. That's a 4K display that could actually become an 8K display with a simple upgrade. Now, you put that together, right? That's not an out-of-the-box kit.
No, it's a little bit of all of the above. It is all commercial off the shelf, so anyone could build one, but I'm figuring out ways of doing it for a heck of a lot less money. So you could now 4K wall for under 20 grand.
Which is, I believe Leo's going to get 2 of those for the brick house, so that will be fantastic. He'll be in touch. But of course, we've also been joined by Mary Jo Foley. She is the queen of all things Microsoft from allaboutmicrosoft.com. Mary Jo, where are you and how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm home in New York today. Beautiful Manhattan.
And well, I think a few things have happened in the Microsoft world in the last couple of days, right? I mean, you're not just here to say hi.
No, just one or two.
Just one or two. Okay, good. Well, let's get right to it because we've got an action-packed show. It's an action-packed docket, starting with our Enterprise Bite. Brian, what do salads and servers have in common?
Oh, the new ones are immersed in oil.
Immersed in oil, that's right. Intel has actually been running this experiment for a while where they have a data center in which all their servers, their blade servers, are immersed in a mineral oil bath. Now, if you're an extreme PCer, if you're a build-it-yourself or an overclocker, you know this method. You can take an inert liquid, mineral oil or fluorinert, and immerse your rig, which allows you to cool it a bit more evenly and a bit better. It's a really cool thing, but, I believe we've got a video here that shows exactly what it entails. If your server is immersed in oil, and if you've got a rack of these blades that are immersed in oil, you can actually keep everything cool with far less power. Brian, have you seen deployments like this before?
I haven't seen mineral oil, but I've certainly seen different types of really nasty chemicals like fluorine from the old craze. Right.
Yeah. Actually, they have a cray here at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in D.C. and it shows you the tanks where they used to keep that floor inert stuff, and they would just pump that through. It was crazy expensive, but it was a really good way to cool down your system and maintain performance. Now, what Intel is figuring out is in the current era of computing, where we don't have to be overclocking and we don't have to worry about things like liquid nitrogen cooling, mineral oil is a really good way to spread out your heating and cooling efficiencies over the entire data center. Though the one problem that they're finding is that, again, if you're an extreme PCer, you've seen this before, trying to do repairs on a system that's been immersed in mineral oil it's pretty, well, it's messy. It's kind of hardcore. Mary Jo, have you heard about this at all? Have you read the article?
I read about what Intel's doing, and Microsoft's been doing their own explorations about how to cool data centers. They've had different projects, like in their Dublin data center, they were using chillerless cooling centers. So I know there's a lot of investigations inside of Microsoft too, but I don't think they've tried oil. I think that's one thing they haven't tried.
Yeah. Well, and again, the reason why they haven't tried oil is because it is so messy. It is a great solution. I remember doing it, but pretty much if you need to make any changes to the rig, it requires either a lot of cleaning or just brand new parts. I think what Intel is finding out is that now that servers have basically been commodities, you can buy server blades, you don't need to replace anything. You just pull the whole part, you put in the new blade, soak that in mineral oil, and it's good to go. And you can have literally racks and racks of these with just mineral oil flowing between the tanks, cooled by an external chiller. Chee, would something like this work in Hawaii, where the ambient temperature is a little warmer than what we might be used to, say, in the mainland?
Oh, there's absolutely no reason why it wouldn't work. I'm hesitant only because, we can't afford to throw things away. I'm in academia, so we can't afford that. But the concept itself is nothing wrong with it. Liquid fluorine, even though it's really dangerous, has been used in Hawaii many times. And the nice thing is you don't need quite as much cooling when you start using a liquid medium for heat transfer. So, like, for instance, some of the things I saw when I was at CeBIT in Germany, I actually saw a condenser water rather than chill water, condenser water cooling system on a Supermicro blade server. So for those of you that aren't aircon engineers, the difference between chill water and condenser water is chill water is at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas condenser water is only at 60 degrees. So the cool thing is you could cool a data center with condenser water all day long, because that's actually the waste product from chill water systems.
Now, Chee, you actually bring up a really good point, and something that's very germane to this topic of soaking your servers in mineral oil. And that is, when we think of colos, when we think of these huge data centers filled with racks and racks of servers and switches, we often think that the big problem is power. That's typically not it. It tends to be weight distribution and cooling. Now, this is taking one of those elements, and it's really making it a non-issue. If my cooling is really as simple as making sure everything is immersed and making sure that there's a good flow of the mineral oil through all of the racks in the data center, then I really only have to worry about weight distribution, right?
Well, the actual issue is leaks. Someday you're going to have a leak. And in traditional data centers where the power comes up through the floor, this could be a really big problem. So very, very few people are willing to go in and dive into liquid cooling of any sort. And the few data centers that have liquid cooling, they've done it very carefully, and they actually have a lot of special drains. And mineral oil is something you could not drain into a city sewer system. That would be very bad.
So, in other words, the future of connectivity is mops.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I love about this is it's a story that, again, it strikes at the uber geek heart. It's something that I've done. I've played with liquid cooling before. I've played with oil cooling. But ultimately, it's about finding better ways for us to stay connected. And Chee, you know what another really good way of staying connected is?
I don't know, Padre. How would you stay connected?
Well, I'm thinking that I'd probably use GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix. Now, they're one of our sponsors. They've actually been a sponsor since pretty much day one of This Week in Enterprise Tech. And I love having them because, well, they're changing the way that we work. They're changing the way that we connect. Now, let's face it. I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but yeah, summer is over. Summer vacation is gone, and we need to get back to work. But here's the problem. You have people you need to talk to. You've got investors, you've got collaborators, you've got your bosses, and you've got your subordinates. But there's only one you, and you can only be one place. So you've got, well, this decision. You can fly around the world. You can try to make phone calls and just gruff out what people mean when they say the things that they think you want to say, or you can use GoToMeeting with HD Faces. Now, one of the things I love about this is that it's really, really easy to use. If you know how to send an email, if you know how to set a calendar date, if you know how to click a mouse button, you know how to set up a GoToMeeting with HD video meeting. Now, here's one of the cool things. If you've had a teleconference before, you know what it's like. It's kind of like just having a conversation when you don't see the person, which is nice, except you miss all the visual cues. How is someone holding themselves? Well, are they smiling? Are they winking? Are they bored? With GoToMeeting with HD Faces, you can actually see everyone in the meeting. You get to see if they're getting the point that you're trying to get across. You get to see if they're bored. You get to see if they agree, and yeah, you're good to go. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to try GoToMeeting with HD Faces. My listeners get to try it free for 30 days, and you can run it from your desktop, from your laptop, from your iPad, from your mobile device. It's really that simple. So please, visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code ENTERPRISE. Be sure to use the promo code ENTERPRISE, and we thank Citrix for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Now, we had a vote on Twitter the other day on, well, the video segment that we were going to use. It came down to, I believe, VLANs or something else, and VLANs crushed the competition. So, Cheebert, we know a little bit about VLANs. Let's let everyone see what else the stuff my IT guy says. I'm Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, host of Twiet, This Week in Enterprise Tech on the Twit Network. We're here at the Hot Stage Warehouse in Brisbane, California, setting up the world's most advanced temporary network. And, well, I'd like to have another edition of Stuff My IT Guy Says. For this edition, I brought out an engineer, a ringer, Mr. Jeff Enters from HP Services, who's going to tell us all about VLANs. Now, Jeff, VLANs are a vital tool. Here at Interop, we use them everywhere. We have VLANs separating out the traffic for voice. We have 3 or 4 different VLANs we run over the Wi-Fi system. So we have one for the attendees, one for registration, one for NOC services, NOC management. Yep. We have VLANs that we push out to, you know, the various corners of the show. But tell me, what are VLANs and how do they work?
So VLANs are a basic concept that we use here at Interop, and everybody should really be using out in their networks to help separate traffic or keep different devices from able to see each other. They can be used in a number of different ways, but essentially they keep a certain group of packets, if you will, from getting from A to B, right? So not bleeding over into another set of packets.
Right. Now, a very realistic usage of this is our show floor. We have dozens of vendors. We've actually separated into, well, these boxes served by these pedestals, these PEDs. Each has its own VLAN, and the reason why we do that is because we don't want the problems of one of these areas, one of these VLANs, to translate over the other VLAN. So for example, let's say I got a loopback in one of my PEDs, and for any number of reasons spanning tree isn't working. I don't want that single loopback to kill the entire network for every single conference attendee. Instead, I can say, look, I've lost connectivity to this PED, to this VLAN. I know that's where my problem is.
That's exactly right. That's a very important part of why we do this here, right? It's not only from a little bit of a security standpoint. Again, VLANs are not about security, but it does help to kind of isolate that traffic a little bit. So certain groups of packets are not able to see the other side, right? So I can't see what's happening from a voice conversation, for example. Put that on a separate VLAN, so I, as an end user, can't just plug in and see what my boss is talking about. So that's a very important part of the VLANs, and as Father Robert mentioned, it's very important to isolate the environment. So especially as you start getting into enterprise-type environments, even small office environments, right? You want to be able to contain the problem to a certain area. So especially if you've got maybe a plant floor or something like that, where you've got a number of different you know, devices out there that are doing scanning or what have you, and something goes wrong with one of those devices, starts spewing out a bunch of bad packets. want to contain that area.
Yeah. Now, something you mentioned that I think is actually important is we use VLANs to secure parts of the network, but we don't use it as a security measure.
That's correct.
Because, yeah, it doesn't encrypt anything.
That's right. One of the components in security, right? Number of levels to security, number of other things behind it. What it does, it's one of those basic levels to keep that separation so I can't see what Father Robert's doing or he can't see what I'm doing, so it helps to separate that traffic. But that's really all it's about.
We've got a really good demonstration, a really simple demonstration of how this works. Now, explain to me, what do we have on the table? We have these IntelliJacks, which, by the way, I have to add, these are some of my favorite pieces of gear to come out of Interop. These are essentially power over Ethernet powered managed switches. But why do we have 4 of them on the table? What are they doing?
So we just kind of set up a real simple configuration here to help show people what VLANs are about, show you guys what this is all about. And so pretend this is a regular switch that's in your environment, 24-port switch, 48-port switch, whatever it might be. Pretend this is another one. And then these two over here, we just use them as end stations. Pretend those are laptops or what have you. We just use those as a device that we can ping to verify that connectivity. So again, very simple configuration of 2 switches and 2 end devices, and we've essentially got 2 VLANs going across here, a VLAN 11 and a VLAN 12, and we're going to show you how these VLANs keep that separated. So the originating laptop over there can see one VLAN but can't see the other VLAN.
Right, and that's what you're seeing right now on this feed, and that is it's got 2 windows. One is trying to ping this device, one's trying to ping this device, and as you can see, traffic is only getting through on one of these command shells. And the reason for that is that we have set these up so that port 1 and port 2 have the same, on this switch, have the same VLANs as port 1 and port 2 on that switch, which essentially means that with this one cable, I've created 2 isolated networks. The traffic doesn't flow between them.
That's absolutely correct. Yep. So to further that just a little bit, this port number 1 here is VLAN 11. This port number 1 here is VLAN 11. Number 2 here is VLAN 12. Number 2 here is VLAN 12. But on the back, this purple cable goes straight from here into the back of this switch, and that cable has both VLANs, and that's VLAN tagged with 802.1q, and 802.1q is the technology or the standard used to tag the VLANs.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch this cable over to port 2, and in a second, because it's got to dump the ARP cache, in a second I should start to see pings off of that second IntelliJack. But tell me, how does the tagging work? Where did the tags start, where do they end, and how do they run through my network?
Sure. So most of your end workstations and servers typically aren't going to send out a tag on a packet. They have the capability these days, but typically they're not. And so the packet's going to come into, let's say in this situation, port 2, it's going to be untagged. So the switch is going to receive that packet with no tag on it. It's going to look at it and say, well, that port's only in VLAN 12. So immediately, any packet coming into a switch, and even a blank switch that has no configuration on it, essentially what they do is they tag the packet as it traverses the switch. So the switch can keep an eye on where that packet is supposed to live. So again, it comes in, immediately the switch tags the packet with VLAN 12, and then again, it sends it out the back here with that 802.1q tag on it with VLAN 12 and that 802.1q tag.
Now, we can see on the screen that we've flopped. So now I can access the other IntelliJack, but that first IntelliJack is no longer pingable. If that's all it was, that wouldn't be that impressive. I can actually start grouping together VLANs. I can actually start grouping together ports into particular network zones. Show me how I do that on this interface and tell me why I'd want to do that.
Sure. So in our example here, as you look at this screen, you can see that on port 1, and again, we're looking at switch number 2 here, and port number 1 on that has what's called a PBID of 11, and port number 2 has a PBID of 12. And what the PBID is it says if I receive a packet and I don't know what VLAN should I put that on. And so the PBID says, well, if you receive a packet doesn't have a VLAN tag on it, put it on this VLAN. And in this situation, we're putting it on 11 or we're putting it on 12 for port 2. So that's what we're doing. Let me go ahead and do the demo.
Go ahead and do the honors.
All right, so here we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be able to make that laptop be able to ping both of these end devices. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to switch port 2 here to 11, to VLAN 11. All right, so here we go. We're going to hit that. That's going to apply it, and now
we need to switch this back over to port 1 because that's where we've added the VLAN.
Exactly.
So in a couple of seconds, again, after it's dumped out its ARP cache, it should show us that it can now ping both the devices.
That is correct.
Okay, now let's get down to brass tacks here. When I'm deploying this through a network, there are a few things that I need to be aware of. First of all, if I'm running a small to medium business, I need to know that all of the switches I use have to at least understand VLANs. And what I mean by that is there's some vendors out there that have unmanaged switches, but they can still pass through VLAN traffic. If I hook up managed switches to an unmanaged switch, it will actually strip out that VLAN tag, which means it won't work anymore.
It is very possible, yeah. You want to be very careful about that as you start to put VLANs on. You want to start to insert a switch between two switches. You know, is it going to be stripping off packets? So you want to look at that. And anytime you start playing around with VLANs, you know, one of the things we had talked about earlier, Father Robert, was about people testing this, right? It's very important to go out and play with this and try it. That's the best way to really understand how this works. Get out there and try it and understand that when you unplug and you move from one port to the other, as Father mentioned, you know, there's an ARP cache in there. And so it's going to take, you know, 30 seconds, maybe a minute for it to move around. So and there we go.
Now we've got both feeds, so that one port is now able to see the traffic on both of these switches, on both of these ports. Now, this is a very small demonstration, but hopefully it shows you the power of a VLAN, and hopefully it inspires you to go out and play. Because again, the best place for you to find out more about VLANs is to get some gear that speaks VLANs and just start playing with it. Start assigning VLANs, you know, make a few mistakes, reset the gear, find out how to use them, and find out how they can benefit you in your network endeavors.
Absolutely. And number one thing is, don't forget, when you're doing that testing, take your time as you move things. Don't expect things to immediately respond. Understand that there's going to be possibly a timeout, whether it's spanning tree or whether it's an ARP cache issue. Why take time as you move over? So, no frustration saved there.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Robert.
bringing in these toys. And by the way, we're going to take a look at these IntelliJacks on Pro Gear. These started out as 3Com gear, but 3Com was acquired by HP, and they've been absolutely fantastic pieces of equipment for us to work with, and I'm kind of excited by that. I'm Father Robert. This is stuff my IT guy says, and you've just been learned.
Now, Cheebert, as iTuner in the chat room just said, I love it when a VLAN comes together. This is the IntelliJack. This is actually a 3Com branded, but it's been, you know, acquired by HP. Fantastic piece of gear, and well, it just shows the power of VLANs. Now, you deploy a enterprise class network on a university campus. How have you used VLANs in just say the last month?
Well, VLANs, we've actually started implementing VLANs under the water because the underwater observatory called the Aloha Cabled Observatory actually is going to be a multi-tenant environment. You're going to be able to take a remote operated vehicle and plug in your experiments if you're a partner with the University of Hawaii. In order to keep you from accidentally or purposely running into other people's traffic coming under the cable, we're going to slide you into different VLANs to separate you out.
All right. And CodeMonkeyX actually asked an interesting question in the chat room, and that is, do VLANs improve the performance, the quality of your network?
That's actually a yes and a no. Every time you put a tag in, you lose 32 bytes of payload. So in one way, you lose payload and thusly some performance. But one of the things you can do is you can start doing things like VLAN prioritization. So if we can bring up those slides, I've got two PowerPoint slides that kind of illustrates this. The first slide has a picture of a bunch of different little choo-choo trains. And the VLAN tags basically are just set up so that if you're VLAN 1 versus VLAN 2 versus VLAN 21, all it does is say who goes first, who goes second, who goes third. It's not, a lot of people call this quality of service. It's not really quality of service. Quality of service is where someone goes and says you have 1 meg per second for your pipe, you have 10 meg per second for another. All this is more like class of service where you're saying who goes first, who goes second, and so forth and so on.
One of the things that we've seen at Interop is, yeah, VLAN, especially the number of VLANs that we've used, it can be a, well, let's just say management overhead nightmare. But one of the advantages of having multiple VLANs on a live network like Interop is that we can segment the traffic so that a problem in one area doesn't necessarily affect the network of another zone. That's invaluable for your performance if you're dealing with, well, the vagaries of an actual live network. Now, what would you say would be the typical VLANs that you would have in, just say, a network within an office building?
Oh, by far, the -- application for VLANs, especially when you start talking about tagging and prioritization, is voice over IP. Anything is jitter and latency sensitive is voice over IP or video conferencing. You want that to go first. Web traffic, even FTP traffic and things like that are not real sensitive to gaps and latency and out of order packets. It can recover it by itself. But you don't want to have, say, an out of order packet arriving late, because then all of a sudden you might be going across the screen, and then jump backwards. Might be bad. So typically what you want to do is you want to have high priority for latency and jitter sensitive applications like VoIP and video.
I think the takeaway here is VLANs, IT admin pro secret. Okay. You know what another pro secret is? And, well, it's how we deal with spam. Cheebert, what's your favorite way of dealing with spam?
Well, my favorite way of dealing with spam is with a little teriyaki sauce on a brick of rice. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about email spam. Well,
rim shot. Yeah, email spam. So we all get it. I mean, email spam is a fact of life. But, you know, when you're dealing with an enterprise class network, when you're dealing with a university campus, it's not just a couple of hundred emails a day. It's a couple of thousand or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. How do you deal with it in the networks that you administer? So what I'm trying to get to is we've got a brand new sponsor here on Twite, and that's MailRoute. Now, if you've watched Twit for a while, you've seen MailRoute, and you've seen what it's done. Tom Merritt used it on one of his abandoned domains, and the reason why the domain was abandoned was because he received so much spam that it basically became unusable. In the 12 months that Tom Merritt has used MailRoute, it has filtered out more than 235,000 spam and malware email messages. That's about 97.7% of the messages going through that domain in total. Since Leo has started using MailRoute, it has filtered out more than 12 million spam and malware messages. It's just an incredibly effective way to make sure that you're not dealing with spam and malware. Now, every IT person has their super secret sauce for dealing with spam. My personal favorite is I've created a honeypot of email addresses, essentially email addresses across all the different domains that I use that I've seeded out into the internet so that they make their way into mailing lists that get sold from one company to the next. Well, if the same email gets tagged onto all of those email addresses, I know that's spam. It's great, it's brilliant, it's fun, it's a little bit of mad scientist, but the problem is all these different ways that we have of combating spam use up time and IT resources. That's two things that IT professionals don't have. That's why I'm excited to have MailRoute, because they take all of that guesswork, they take all of that mad scientist work, and they make it happen in the background. You simply change a MX record, your mail gets routed through their servers, and, well, it comes out clean on the other side. One of the things that I really like about MailRoute is the fact that they have live service. This will be a big plus to anyone who has ever used either a spam filtering service or a mail service that is fully automated. To actually have a live person on the other end of a phone is something that is invaluable. You can call them anytime, Monday to Friday, business hours, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and actually ask them about, well, what's going on with my system? Another thing I really like about theirs is that their technology, the way that they forward mail, well, it holds it in abeyance if your server goes down. Which means if you're making a slight tweak to your mail server, if you're, say, playing with your Exchange services, you don't have to worry about bounces happening when your mail server goes down. It's simply held by MailRoute and then forwarded onto you when you're ready to receive them. Now, here's what I want you to do. If you deal with email administration at all, if you run your own server, if you run your own network, you need to try out their services. My listeners get to try their service for a free 15-day trial and 10% off for the life of the account. What you can do is visit mailroute.net, click the sign up button, and enter the promo code ENTERPRISE to start your free 15-day trial. No credit card is required for the free trial. That's mailroute.net. Click the sign up button and enter the promo code ENTERPRISE. We thank MailRoute for their support of This Week in enterprise tech. Now let's get to the main event. It's Microsoft, Microsoft, Microsoft. We've had an expert in the corner who's been quietly letting us geek out. Mary Jo Foley, what's going on in Microsoft?
Oh man, where do we even start with that? Well, I'd say for this week in enterprise tech, probably the biggest thing that's going on right now is Windows Server. And Microsoft just released the final Windows Server 2012 bits to everybody, general availability on September 4th. And I was trying to think about how we should talk about Windows Server on the show because there are 300 new features. I don't think we're going to have time to do all of that.
Probably not. Let's do the highlights. No, actually, no. Let me stop us for a second and ask this. When I think of exciting products from Microsoft, I typically don't start with their server products. I mean, they work well. I've got them in my own colo. But why should I be interested, excited, anxious about Windows Server 2012?
You know what's interesting is Windows Server 2012 and Windows 8 are two products that were developed hand in hand. And everybody knows about Windows 8. You've seen the demos, you've seen the tile interface, and you either love it or hate it pretty much. But people who I talk to, my readers, people who are in the enterprise, the product they love almost universally is Windows Server 2012. Some even say they think this is the sleeper product, not Windows 8. They think the server is the big announcement for Microsoft this year, even more than the client, which is pretty unusual for a server, like you're saying. And what they like about it, I mean, there's just, I don't even know where to start with the list of features, but there's tons of advances in this product in what Microsoft's doing around virtualization with Hyper-V and network virtualization as well. Speaking of the topic you guys were just talking about a minute ago, there's quite a bit going on with VLANs even. They add a new isolated private VLAN mode to Windows Server 2012. What else? IP address management. There's IIS-8, which is Internet Information Services 8.0, that adds CPU usage caps. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So there's tons of new features for people who like to geek out on servers. New file system, storage resource pools, cloud backup, you name it, it's in this product.
Now, we have a question from Dr. T in the chat room. He wants to know what the migration path is going to be to go from R2 to 2012. Did they demonstrate that at the event?
I don't remember if they did. They had a little problem with their feed at their launch event. Let's not jinx us by saying that.
Right. Now, Cheebert, we do see in 2012 that they have greatly improved their VDI support. This is your area of expertise. What do you think 2012 is going to do for VDI?
2012 is basically going to be the landmark operating system that makes VDI truly and completely possible. Previously now, everybody's been using things like terminal server where you're taking a single operating system and slicing it up. And the problem is you start running into a lot of problems, especially if someone wants to do something that requires some graphics. In 2012, they've made it a lot easier. In fact, 3 clicks versus 3 pages of instructions to be able to go and set up a graphics processor in the file server so that that does all the heavy lifting. The whole issue behind trying to create a graphics processor-based VDI system is you don't want to change the user experience. Having the ability to be able to do the heavy lifting for things like AutoCAD or MathCAD or playing some sort of game like Halo, it all makes a difference where the heavy lifting is done. So if there's a graphics processor in the server, that's a pretty big deal. Citrix has had this ability, but only with Zen Server, and it's a GPU pass-through. The difference with what RemoteFX is doing is that it leverages a timeshare of the graphics processor, slightly different. It's a pretty big difference, and VDI is going to basically change the way we get things. There's a very good chance that ISPs in the near future will be having managed desktops. So instead of having to buy a full desktop and copies of this and that and that and this, why not just buy a virtual desktop? And that way, if you change your company or you downsize or you upsize, you can just go and say, oh, I need to walk away from that. So sorry. One of the things that I actually did show was this. This is actually Windows to Go. This is an entire copy of Windows 8 on a USB drive. It's actually going to be sold by Kingston and one other company that, forgive me, I can't remember the name. But you actually just boot from this USB drive, and you have a full copy of Windows 8 to do your VDI or what have you.
Now, open question to both of you, and that is, well, with 2012, let's address the white elephant in the room. When we talk about virtualization, of course, the leader right now has got to be VMware. I mean, it's got the hearts of IT admins. It is arguably easier to manage across an enterprise, but 2012 does have a couple of advantages now that could be leveraged into how they compete against VMware for the virtualization space. Brian, Mary Jo, what do you think 2012 can do to sort of change the game Microsoft is having with VMware?
Well, one thing I'd say there is that Microsoft's kind of making hay with some of the mistakes that VMware's made around its pricing and licensing. They recently had to go back and change their whole pricing and licensing policy with vSphere because, let me see if I can remember since I don't cover VMware that closely. I think they had changed to a per, was it a per CPU? Chee, do you remember?
Right.
What?
Right. Yeah, they changed our licensing terms. Chee, what was that again? I think you followed that when they changed their licensing terms from per seat or per instance to per CPU used.
Yeah, basically what caused that big change was when Microsoft changed the way they license their server operating systems. The data center version is something that caught everybody by surprise. When you buy data center, you can now shoehorn in as many virtual servers as will physically fit on that one system. And what's really cool about it is now with that data center edition, it's valid for VMware or Hyper-V. And so all of a sudden VMware goes, oh, that's kind of really cool, and we're going to need to play catch up. Actually, one of the things that Microsoft did that was playing catch up with VMware is the big changes they made to System Center 2012. System Center, think of it as the vSphere on the VM world, but a whole heck of a lot more. In fact, System Center 2012 can manage Xen Server, VMware, or Hyper-V, and it also allows you to do things like scheduling patches, even if the virtual machines aren't on. So a pretty big change.
Now, Mary Jo, I want to throw this back to you and maybe get back up to the 10,000-foot view. With the release of 2012, there's a lot of people who are saying that the reason why it's a dark horse product is because it's really starting to show the strategy that Microsoft is going to be taking for all its platforms, for mobile, for tablet, for desktop, for laptop. What do you see in the 2012 roadmap that shows you how those are going to converge?
Well, I see a couple of things. One, the main thing I see is Microsoft, across all of those products that you just mentioned, is leading with the cloud. And what that means is, in the old Microsoft, you'd develop a product like Windows Server, and then you'd throw it over the wall and say to the cloud guys, okay, now cloud enable this and make it a cloud product. Now, these days, these teams sit together. They work on these products together from the very beginning. So this time, the Windows Azure team and the Windows Server team were working together on Windows Server 2012, starting 3 years ago, basically. And what that changes is the features that you see in a product that's running on premises, like Windows Server 2012, they mirror very much what's going on in the cloud. So you hear Microsoft talking about Windows Server 2012 as having things like multi-tenancy, which is a cloud term and a cloud topic. But they're thinking more like, okay, from a server perspective, what does that look like? That looks like, different departments in your company can run securely in different partitions on the server. And I think you're going to see that on Windows Server. You're going to see it on phone. You're going to see it on System Center vis-a-vis Windows Intune, which is the PC cloud complement. And I think you're just going to start seeing Microsoft's roadmap being more about cloud and server or cloud and client together instead of two totally different sets of roadmaps and priorities.
This strikes me as something that has been sorely needed at Microsoft, which is sort of the breaking down of silos, rather than having this product and then the cloud division and that product and the cloud division and trying to get them to interact. It looks like the features are actually being baked in at the creation side of the process. What can we see as a fruitful benefit of that interaction, of that breaking down of silo walls? I think specifically to Windows mobile strategy, where they've got an actual decent operating system, they've got a decent platform, but it's crippled by things like licensing with Windows Server and Exchange Server. Can we finally start to see the divisions play nicely with one another so you get a seamless experience across the Windows platform?
I think you're going to see more of that. In fact, just today, we learned from some Microsoft blog posts that they're going to be doing some things around Windows Intune, which is their PC cloud management product, combined with System Center 2012 Service Pack 1, that'll let you manage inside your company Windows RT devices, which are the Windows, the ARM-based tablets and PCs that are coming, and also Windows Phone 8 devices. So more and more, I think, instead of seeing like, here's Windows Phone 8, and now, 2 years later, you get a management suite to work with that product. You're starting to see those things converge, and by early next year now, you're going to be able to manage Windows RT devices and Windows Phone 8 devices using Intune and System Center. And that's a really different schedule and a really different set of priorities than you saw with Microsoft even just a couple of years ago.
Now, we've got a question in the chat room here for you, Mary Jo, and that is, are those yellow earbuds from the Nokia phone that you can't talk about?
These are Nokia earbuds, but there's no phone that goes with them. We didn't get to get phones, sadly, but they gave us earbuds.
If you had a phone, could you tell us about it?
Maybe. I might have to cite a name, but I don't. No,
Okay.
I do not have a Windows Phone 8 device, sadly. And one reason I don't is I'm waiting for whatever Verizon gets, and we don't know what they're going to get yet from Nokia or HTC or anyone. So that's still a mystery to us.
Okay. Cheebert, I want to throw this back to you for your input. I mean, when we see this integration and when we see, well, as someone in the chat room pointed out, we see that Microsoft moving to this model where they could be pricing VMware out. I mean, why would you buy a VMware solution and then buy Windows on top of it if the virtualization is already built into the Windows product, into the Microsoft product? Where do you see Microsoft going with this? What is their roadmap for the next 5 years of virtualization, VDI, and platform integration?
Well, Microsoft is already changing their pricing. Realistically, in order to run certain things like even Citrix on Hyper-V, you have to buy the System Center Virtual Machine Manager. Well, Microsoft just recently told me, well, great, you have VMM System Center, so now you have a full copy of System Center. So they're basically grandfathering a lot of people in. I think Microsoft is trying to buy a lot of this market and get past the inertia that VMware has built up. VMware has some really good things. It runs on more hardware than Hyper-V does. Hyper-V is still kind of picky about what it runs on. VMware, I can actually run VMware ESX3 on something even a 32-bit machine, whereas I can't do that with Hyper-V. So Microsoft is playing catch-up. They're Johnny-come-lately in the virtualization game, but by giving away the virtualization with every copy of their server operating system, they're literally buying the market. And darn, Hyper-V is actually really easy to manage, really easy to set up, and easy to migrate to.
Well, I want to see what our hardcore IT geeks in the chat room have to say about that. I know they're really gung-ho on VMware, and why not? It's a great product, but I think you're right. I mean, if Microsoft can offer a competent product that it really works across the platforms with all the various solutions that they have, it's really hard to justify a high extra cost to get VMware in addition to Windows. Mary Jo, I want to give you the last word. What do you see with Server 2012? What do you see with these announcements that we really need to pay attention to in the coming weeks?
I think you need to watch I'd say the next month of announcements from Microsoft, because this is when you're going to see them roll out all their consumer-facing announcements. So you're going to see the Windows 8 launch, the Windows Phone 8 launch. You're going to just see a parade of things from them. And what's going to be interesting for the IT professionals is, okay, now we have all these clients, you know, the Surface RT tablets, the phones, the Windows 8 boxes. How do I manage this? And what's Microsoft's story going to be around that? Because that's going to be really key to whether, you know, anybody really attempts to bring those into the enterprise, or they just decide, you know, let's keep that out for a while and see where all the dust settles.
Cheebert, any last words before we end this little play?
Well, I just wanted to answer a few chat room questions. Yes, indeed, there is USB pass-through. I actually use a server from Digi Corporation. It allows me to have a 6-pack of USBs shared on anything over the network. You can also run various other operating systems. My lab happens to be the home of Fedora. One of my students created that or drove the project. Fedora runs just fine, so does CentOS, so does Ubuntu. Virtualizing Linux is easy. There's even ways to virtualize Mac OS X, but not legally. So to answer the guys in the chat room, yeah, baby, you can have just about anything you want.
That's the way you want it, anywhere you want it. Got it. All right. Oh, I do want to say thank you to the last of our sponsors, Audible. Cheebert, have you used Audible at all?
I have not, but I think I need to.
I found it to be the perfect companion for me when I'm on the go, because I don't read well when I'm traveling in planes. I actually get sick. It's one of my things. Or if I'm taking a long drive, sometimes I run out of Twit podcasts and I need something to listen to. That's where Audible comes into play. I mean, they've got over 100,000 books. They've got selection that goes from documentary, fiction, nonfiction, sci-fi, fantasy. You name it, they've got it. Audible is the leading provider of audiobooks. And, well, for our listeners, Audible is offering a free audiobook to give you a chance to try out their service. My choice this week is a book called The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. I read this book way back when I was studying in Chicago. It's about a Jesuit priest, and so, again, I'm sorry, I have a personal like for this book, who gets shot into space using technology that's actually not that far off to explore a world that they've discovered. It was a flight of fancy. It was a wonderful book to read, but I find that on Audible, it's even greater to listen to. And that's one of the things that I really like about Audible, which is it allows me to take even books that I've read before and listen to them in a different way, to see the story through someone else's eyes, and that's always something that's welcome. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go and download your audiobook for free, either The Sparrow or another one of your choice. Go to audiblepodcast.com/enterprise, and you'll be able to sign up for your free trial. That's audiblepodcast.com/enterprise, and we thank Audible for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, you've done it again. You've used up another hour of your time with This Week in Enterprise Tech. I'm afraid that's all the time we've got to play, but a few parting shots. The first thing is that we need you to subscribe. No matter what you listen to, no matter how you listen to Twiet, we need you to find a way to get our podcast at all times. Go to our page at twit.tv/Twiet, and you'll be able to find all the different ways to get Twiet. Either subscribe through an RSS feed, get it on iTunes, get it on your Zune, if you still have one of those, and yes, I do, and basically find the different versions and find the one that works for you. If you're listening in the car, the audio version may work just fine, but if you want to watch us at home and see us in all our video goodness, download the HD version as well, and you'll be able to see stuff my IT guy says. Now, you can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/PadreSJ. You'll be able to see what we're doing in the next week of Twiet. You'll be able to vote on, what segments we're going to be doing each week, and you'll be able to find what the geeks are doing as we do our thing around Interop and enterprise conferences around the planet. Also, if you're listening to this show on a download right now, why not try to watch the live show? We tape every Monday noon Pacific time, and you can join the chat room to find out what's going on in there. It's filled with some of the most brilliant people you ever meet and some of the funniest people you'll ever meet and some of the biggest trolls. That's just part of the life. But it's part of the experience that is the Twit community, and I find it to be the best thing that Twit has to offer. Finally, I want to thank our guests, Brian Chee and Mary Jo Foley. Brian, what are the things that you're doing that you want our audience to know about?
Get your flu shot.
That's right. T-Bert's recovering from the flu. But I'd rather have you talk about that big screen behind you. What can you plug about that?
Well, this is actually a traditional video screen. It's got a $96,000 video processor that allows me to take just about any resolution video, re-massage it, and put it up onto a 4x3 matrix of 55-inch LCD monitors. What I am playing with is, just as I can get rid of this flu bug, I'm going to be heading to Kona to build a video wall, a 2x2 for the infrasound lab. This is, instead of using a really, really expensive and hard-to-use video processor appliance, I'm actually going to be using the new Matrox Mira cards. It's a $5,000 card for 4 input, 4 output, and it just goes into a PCIe version 2 X16 slot and turns a regular PC into a full video processor. It's going to be very exciting. I'll take a lot of pictures and some video, and we're going to do a future episode on how to build your own video wall, get 4K resolution, and do it for about $15,000.
A geek project if there ever was one. Now, Mary Jo Foley from allaboutmicrosoft.com, what's going on in your part of the world, and what do you want our listeners to know about?
So a couple things to know about. One is later this week on September 12th, Microsoft's launching Visual Studio 2012. It's going to be a virtual launch, although there will be some in-person part for people who are out in Redmond. But I'm going to be writing probably quite a bit about Visual Studio 2012 and .NET 4.5 this week, so something to watch for. Also next week, on September 19th here in New York City, it's going to be a big HTC announcement about their Windows phones, Windows Phone 8 models that they've got coming. So if you're somebody who cares about all the new interesting business features that are being put into Windows Phone 8, like encryption, like side loading of apps, etc., you're probably going to want to tune in and see what HTC has to offer, because it's not just, even though I'm wearing the yellow earbuds, not just a Nokia world for us Windows Phone users. There's other choices too.
Thank you, Mary Jo. It's always great to have you on the show. We'll have you back a lot because I have a feeling there's a lot more Microsoft announcement news goodness to come up. Now, thanks again for watching, and thanks to the Twit crew back in Petaluma. I miss you guys. I'll be sure to pop in for a dance sometime in the near future. And for all of you, remember, if you want to know what's going on in the enterprise, just keep quiet.